episode in Sailing Millennial Falcon, we explore Key West and set about doing some odd jobs on the boat. We also got our registration through for the boat so we could finally start sailing overseas. In this episode, we're travelling from Key West over to Marathon to get ready for our sail into the Caribbean.
How are you feeling, Kiara?
Good.
Yeah?
We're not making very good progress.
You're out in the big blue for the first time in more than 300 feet of water.
Yep. Technically, we are heading back towards America, but beforehand we were heading to Cuba before. Right into the big blue towards Cuba.
We weren't actually going there, and then we decided to go back to America, but we were pointed out that way.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get from Key West down to Marathon, which is sort of due east or east-northeast, which is exactly where the wind is coming from. So suffice to say, it's a bit of a nightmare.
And it's going to be a long day.
And it's going to be a long day and probably evening before we get there. Fortunately for us, with the exception of the entry into Hawk Channel, which is sort of like an outer reef, it's not a really shallow reef, but it's just spotted with little bommies and drop-offs and things. With the exception of that, the entry to where we plan to anchor tonight should be pretty cruisy. So hopefully if we show up after dark, or when we show up after dark, we shouldn't have too many trouble. Shameful confession time.
I can't tie knots, and as a result of this I just lost our strobe light into the water. It fell off the back because the knot didn't obviously hold, and it's just gone floating away, flashing. I'm sorry.
Stop looking so smug. You do not look apologetic at all.
Can't do an apologetic. I can't see it, it's not very good.
It's not night time.
You want to tell the folks what's going on the last hour?
You probably can't see me because of the torch, sorry about that. In the last hour, the sun has gone down, the moon has come up, we lost the autopilot, which accidentally tacked us, which was quickly corrected, and now for some reason the bilge pump is running like a lot, and there seems to be water coming in from the one part of the boat that I can't figure out where it's coming from because there's no hatch. It's right under the kitchen. So it's kind of been a shitty night, pardon the French. It's been a rough 24 hours. Last night yesterday morning we left Key West at about 8 o'clock on our way down to Marathon, which is like 40 miles, but we were bashing straight into the wind the whole way. And it took us a very long time. And we decided that we were going to sail as long as it took through the night, because the approach to the Marathon anchorage is pretty much straight in if you meet your ley line correctly. Anyway, just after sundown, like 8 p.m, we went from having a full moon, clear sky, working autopilot, no leaks, no dramas, a glorious sail with 15 knots wind, to a dark, cloudy night with no autopilot, and we were taking on water from some place that we couldn't identify. So we spent the remainder of the evening driving by hand and tearing our house apart looking for where the water was coming in from. And at about 2 a.m. we found an anchorage, or well, I'd hardly call it an anchorage, but we found water that was shallow enough for us to drop an anchor in with a broken windlass to survive the night. And we managed to stop the leaking. We suspect that we have a leaking hose in our manual bilge circuit, because the manual bilge pump is playing up, and the rate of water flow has dramatically dropped off once we closed the seacock. So we're hoping that that's the issue. And true to form, this morning while we're under motor on our way back to the actual marathon anchorage, the autopilot is working a treat again. So I suspect that maybe that's a voltage issue, but I have no idea at this point. That's just a guess. Anyway, they say you only look as good as you feel, and this should pretty much summarize the last 24 hours.
Luckily on the way to marathon, these guys brightened up our morning.
Hey guys! Hello! So, as it turns out, our autopilot problem was a problem of my own making. When I installed the refrigerator just above the engine on this convenient little shelf, which was perfectly placed and was the only place that I would be able to run the copper tubing to the fridge while staying close enough to the battery to power it sufficiently, I hooked it up to a bus bar in the engine bay that had a lovely 12.7 volts running across it. At the time I thought everything was sweet and we didn't have a problem for weeks, until the other night when the autopilot crapped out on us. After some troubleshooting and a bit of a good hard think, Kiara and I came to the conclusion that we had the radar on, the autopilot on, the charts on, the stereo and radio on, and the autopilot was working like moderately hard. It crapped out the first time just after attack when we were trying to reset our heading on the other tack, which after a little bit of reading of the manual is when the full, it's quite a high load situation for the linear drive on the autopilot, and subsequently requires quite a lot of voltage. Rolled her eyes at me and be like, God, you go on and on. Did you make any sense at all? So I'm going to try and summarize in like 2 minutes or less. The fridge was overloading the power supply for the autopilot, which caused it to trip out and go back to standby. Happy?
Yeah.
Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Done. Summarized.
What have you got there, Adam?
This is hopefully a replacement hose for the manual bilge pump, which was leaking the other night on the way down to Marathon, causing us much panic. So West Marine absolutely fleeced us for this flimsy 10-footer hose. We're now bankrupt and looking for work. No, we have to race back, check if this hose fits. If it doesn't, we're going to race back and get a different hose. And if it does fit, we have to install it, test it, get it working, and get out of here all before our weather window closes to cross the Gulfstream.
Thankfully the hose fit, so we set off on a mammoth food shopping trip and started getting ready for our sail to Turks and Caicos. Yeah. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
If you like that, like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram. Tags are below in the comments below, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.